Hello and welcome everyone to part 1 to A Heart Full of Dandelions, my KuroKen Haikyuu. I hope you will like it. Now enjoy! Kenma stared at the yellow fuzz of petals, curiously. He couldn't remember eating dandelions for dinner or breathing them in for that matter. It was just a few of the fuzzy, yellow petals, so perhaps he didn't notice. His throat was still aching slightly. His hand subconsciously moved to the area, his fingers ghosting over the soft skin. Odd. He was so aware of all the things coming in touch with him, hated how most made him feel, that it seemed impossible to have missed something like breathing in flower petals. He shrugged his shoulders and swiftly let the yellow petals fall into the bin under his table. He just brushed it off as a one-time event. Except, it wasn't just one time. As he got ready for school the next day and glanced outside his window, where Kuro was already waiting and grinning up at him, the scratching in his throat returned. It was just a little uncomfortable at first, and part of him hoped he could use it to get out of practice today. But as they walked slowly, side by side to the hell that was school, it didn't get better, and shortly before the entrance he found himself coughing. Kuro stopped immediately and looked at him with worry written all over his face. Kenma? Are you... I'm fine. He gasped for air. His face scrunched up as he noticed a distinct taste in his mouth, accompanied by an odd sensation. When Kuro wasn't looking, he reached up and to his surprise found another small bundle of dandelion petals. He furrowed his brows at the yellow fluff, but quickly caught himself and threw it away before Kuro could notice. He was enough of an odd person at that. He didn't need to add rumors of him eating dandelions to it. During school, it got a little easier. The scratching in his throat persisted, but it was more manageable and he could suppress the coughing when it came up. He avoided talking in order not to irritate his airways further, but since his silence wasn't anything new, no one noticed. By the time practice rolled around, he hadn't seen another one of the yellow petals and got to breathe more freely again. Half-heartedly, he greeted the rest of his team in the club room while changing into sports attire. Kuro wasn't there, which used to irritate him the first times this happened, but by now he knew that their overly eager captain was already in the gym preparing the net. He sighed, regretting it immediately as the uncomfortable sensation in his throat intensified. Kenma gulped to get rid of it and tried to ignore it as he joined the others in the gym. More importantly, he tried to avoid Kuro, who had a keen eye for when something was wrong with him or he didn't feel alright. Oddly enough, it seemed to help. He shrugged his shoulders, but thought nothing of it as his mind got preoccupied with turning their warm-up into a video game to make it bearable. He followed Kuro's instruction blindly, easily falling into the usual routine. Okay, let's warm up with some spikes. They quickly formed two rows on opposites of the court, and Kenma took the setter position. They threw him the ball and he'd set it back for them to attack. It was an easy exercise and one of his favorites since it didn't require him to move much. Unless Liev threw the ball way off to the side again. Kuro was next. They were in perfect sync as Kenma gave him the ball exactly where Kuro needed it. The few seconds Kuro was in the air, reaching to attack as Kenma followed the ball with his gaze, he couldn't help but admire him. He was gorgeous. Passion reflected in his eyes, and one could tell how much in his element he was when spiking the ball. Suddenly, it was as if his throat was closing rapidly. Vines seemed to grow out of nowhere in his lungs, blossoming into yellow petals. He doubled over as he started coughing. Tears pricked in his eyes as he desperately tried to remove the object blocking his airways. Kenma? Koda's worried voice rang next to his ear. The usual comfort he felt was accompanied by the sensation intensifying. He couldn't breathe, but he didn't know why. Koda patted his back softly to aid him, but the more Kenma wished to seek comfort in his embrace, the worse it got. Haikyuu must have noticed too, because he grabbed Kenma's arm and gently pulled him to his feet. You continue your drills. I'll get him to the club room for water and to rest for a moment. But no buts. He was already dragging Kenma along, who barely had the energy to voice his protest. As they arrived at the club room, he rushed over to the sink and coughed harder. The lump obstructing his throat suddenly loosened, and when he caught his breath enough to look down, he froze. The small collection of yellow dandelion petals, much more than before, they looked like a half-bloomed blossom, almost complete. Even worse, it was covered in red drops. When he reached up, the same red liquid coated his lips and fingers. The metallic taste in his mouth didn't make it hard to guess what it was. That... Kenma? Haikyuu carefully approached him. The setter's eyes were wide in panic, and he stood frozen above the bloody mess in shock. Try taking deep breaths. It should be better now. Confused, Kenma did as he was told, and found, to his own surprise, that he was right. His throat still hurt, burning in protest, but he could breathe again. It merely alleviated his panic a little. The confusion was gnawing on him, and he didn't know what to do. Why didn't you tell anyone that you have Hanahaki? Puzzled, he looked at the libero, who handed him a bottle of water and knelt down before him where Kenma had sunk into the ground. What? His voice sounded scratchy and unfamiliar. It hurt a little, but the cool water helped. I mean, I get that it's probably not easy to talk about, but practicing with your flower giver? It's too dangerous, Kenma. He hated the feeling of missing out on something apparently obvious. He hated not knowing what people meant when they talked like he should know. The irritation must have been evident on his face because Haikyuu frowned. I know it is a lot, but you can't be this reckless. It'll kill you if you're not careful. Clearly having mistaken Kenma's gaze for defiance, Haikyuu started his lecture on how this team was a bunch of reckless idiots only bested in that category by the crazy crows from Karasuno. But Kenma still didn't understand. His throat hurt as he tried to speak, giving him yet another argument not to ask. He wished he didn't have to. But obviously Haikyuu knew something he didn't about the situation, and the one thing he hated more than speaking up was not knowing, depending on the situation. What is Hanahaki? That made the libero falter, and realization dawned on his face, his mouth forming a slight O. You don't know? Obviously not. He tried not to let his annoyance show on his face in fear of not getting the answers he desired, but his eyes must have darkened with it because Haikyuu sat back inside. Hanahaki is a disease born of unrequited love, or a love you think is unrequited. It causes flowers to grow in your lungs and airways until you suffocate. This is unless you do something about it. Kenma tried to process that. He didn't know a disease could do that, and even less expected to be someone who would be affected by it. Your flower giver is the person that you're in love with, causing the growth. In your case, Kuro, I assume. Is that right? Heat rose up in his cheeks and he felt the scratching intensifying and coughed. Haikyuu apologetically patted over his back. That's all. No, he couldn't be. He couldn't be in love with Kuro. They were friends. It would ruin everything. He just wanted to be close to him because they were best friends, right? Kenma had never been in love before. Nor did he have a friend as close as Kuro, so there was nothing he could compare this emotion to. No reference he could use to figure this out. Except, there was one friend he considered closer than most. Shoyo. The orange-haired epitome of sunshine somehow wormed his way into his heart and refused to leave. That did feel different from Kuro, but only because it was so relatively new, right? How do you know so much? Haikyuu sighed again and reluctantly pulled on his collar. Kenma didn't even notice until Haikyuu specifically brought attention to them that there were two tiny scars a few shades lighter than the actual skin. I had it. That was in middle school. Kenma could tell that the timeline wasn't quite right, that Haikyuu twisted the story slightly, but he didn't complain, very much understanding not wanting to make yourself too vulnerable. There are different ways to go about healing Hanohaki. You can confess and get over the rejection, move on, and the flowers will disappear. Maybe your feelings even do get reciprocated even though you thought it was impossible. Or you can perform a surgery, either to buy more time or remove the flowers completely. The catch is, if you do that, you will never be able to feel any sort of romantic feelings towards that person again. It will be over. Once and for all. If I do nothing, you die. They sat in silence for a moment as Kenma tried to sort his thoughts. I knew that the guy I was in love with wouldn't reciprocate my feelings. I'm pretty sure he was in love with someone else. I was also too prideful to man up, confess, and get it over with. I had to take the surgery. I had driven myself to the point of having no choice. Don't let it come that far, Kenma. For me, this worked out. For once, because there was truly no hope for us, and second, because in that situation, moving on was the best I could do, even if it was forced. He looked at Kenma intensely. But it doesn't have to be the same for you. I won't tell you what to do, but I beg you, please try to talk to him about it. Kenma couldn't reply. There was something about the way he said it that made him falter. Go home for the day. I'll tell Coach and the others that you aren't feeling well. Think about everything. He got up and turned around to leave, but hesitated at the door. You shouldn't come to practice anymore until you have made a decision. It's not safe. He felt that firsthand. It still stung. Usually, he'd jump at the opportunity to get out of practice for a day, but this was different. Also, wasn't Haikyuu indirectly telling him to stay away from Kuro until he knew how he felt about him? Which was utterly pointless if Kuro didn't like him like that anyway. He felt the scratching increasing once more and frustratedly slumped his head against the wall. This was fucked up. Thank you so much for watching to the end. I hope you like this long-awaited KuroKen KuroKen and Haikyuu. I can do my job. If you did, don't forget to leave a like because it really, really helps the channel out. So please, please, please leave a like. And also don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss out on the next parts. The next part of this in particular should come out next Friday. I am super excited for it. Tell me what you thought in the comments, including your favorite quote and the quote. Your favorite quote. No, we're exchanging code names. We're spies secretly. This is a spy operation. Special thanks to my nitty nickels. Don't mind me, okay? Don't mind me. I'm not good at my job, but that's okay. It's okay because you're here and you bear with me. Ouch. Have a great day. Look at these videos. I love you all so much.
Step 2, get some good, some food in you. Step 3, you grow hard about what you want to be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up. Today's gonna be a good day. Wake up. Today's gonna be a good day. Wake up. Today's gonna be